we have what I like my favorite section with hot takes. So I'm going to be more firm in terms of I tend to rattle on in terms of what it is. I worked it out in my notes. Bam, 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 and we get your opinions. Remember, the topic at hand is what is to be focused on because every topic here we can blow up and go at various angles here. For the audience, this is the equivalent of a lightning round. So we call it the hot take. So hot take number one. Culture clash. Rap star calls BLM a scam. Rapper Lil Yeti's claim on the cooking show that Black Lives Matter is a scam, alleging the $6 million California compound. BLM says, no, we needs that property. We needs it for our long-term goals. Okay, the question is the lid finally blowing off BLM's money grab? And will prosecutors ever go after them? Big John.
No, it'll still be a money grab. Will prosecutors go after them? Probably not. It'll have to be some really magnificent bit of fraud if you're talking about just the organizational structure. But for the most part, I think it'll continue. It continues for all political groups.
Jamie, same question to you, but with
they rename themselves for the 2028 election. I'm not sure what that name will be, but they will continue the fraud and they will not be prosecuted.
Okay. My take is I agree with both of you. I think they're so brazen, Big John. They may do something so catastrophic, because when people are that brazen, they don't think sometimes. All right, hot take number two: cultural fade. Michelle Obama's podcast flag. So Michelle Obama has a new podcast. It's called IMO. So I'm assuming, in my opinion, with Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson. And before I go on, big apologies to Michelle Obama. I saw her brother. They're like twins. So there is no Michael. It's her brother that we've been seeing. That's a joke, people. Anyway, she launched her podcast, and she has 100 million followers on social media. 14,000 people watch or listen to the second one. Those are paltry numbers. So many now believe that the Obama's relevance is tanking. So the question is, with her podcast literally flopping, bombing, based off her 100 million followers, you combine that with Barack's endorsed candidates consistently crashing since he left office. Are the Obamas yesterday news, and did his condescending push to guilt black men into voting for Kamala prove that they've lost the pulse of America? Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, everybody forgets the $100 million contract they signed with Netflix for I'm not even sure what. And so now we're learning that, of course, there's fraud, and I think their influence has waned. But how much does your influence wane when you are a billionaire? And I think the Obamas are quickly approaching that.
Big John.
I don't know how much influence. I mean, look, I think she could be very influential. I don't know how many of those 100 million followers are real followers and how many just do it to virtue signal. So that number is meaningless to me. I will say, though, from the reaction of the coordinated reaction of the right-wing social media guys, kind of tells me that they might be a little concerned about her. Like, when I see it on Twitter and everything, it's constantly referring to her as Big Mike, constantly insulting her appearance, constantly, like harping on that aspect of it being very pejorative, very, very insulting towards her. So is that an indication that she might have some juice left in the tank? Maybe. I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see as she goes forward.
No, Big John, you're right. It's not coordinated. That's just how we gravitate towards her because of how the media's portrayed her. The most beautiful. I'm like, you're not even in my top 50 in terms of female first ladies, and there hasn't been 50 presidents. How she's a complete charade, fraud in terms of how they portrayed her.
I might put her ahead of some of those ladies in the 1880s. I'll be honest with you, William.
Yeah, John, you are absolutely correct. There is some fear in her. It's all this isn't coordinated. It's like you didn't realize it was that bad, if that makes sense. That bad. So I think their influence was never there. They are a product of a media. A lot of their followers, as Big John says, I also believe it's just people who virtue signal. They don't care about him. And I think and my proof is Obama has a dismal record with endorsements. These numbers to me are worse than anybody could have thought, but I think it does signify that they are old news. Just like Clinton. Clinton now because the Me Too movement is like, why put him out there? So there's some remote. Hot take number 4, policy move. Here, hot take number 3, Big John's favorite topic. Another incident of potential voter fraud, Colorado's mail-in ballots. I don't even need to go into it as much as same old story, different place. We'll start with you, Jamie. At what point do Americans wake up and see that voter fraud isn't just possible, but it's happening, and unchecked, unable to verify mail-in ballots like Colorado is experiencing this go round is just the tip of the iceberg?
Well, every time we talk about this, I'm going to continue to try to change the conversation, and conservatives need to talk about supporting free, fair, and transparent elections. And you can have that and have mail-in ballots, but you need to have signatures on the ballot. You need to have them canvassed properly, like we do in Florida and have in Florida for 40 years. So yes, but I do think that people are realizing that there's some level of fraud that takes place. Nobody wants to believe it is as large and as impactful as it possibly is.
Ironically, I did my mail-in ballots as a resident of Florida. Big John.
I'm going to be one of those people that Jamie just identified as not believing how big the actual fraud is. So it's not zero. I think you'd be foolish to think there's absolutely zero fraud taking place. I don't think it's.
Hold on, John. That's just a statistical impossibility.
Like I said, it's not zero. I said it's not zero. I think if you do believe it's zero, you're fooling yourself. Do I think it's at the level that conservatives tend to blow it up as an issue? I don't. So
certainly where there's same-day registration, that's fraud. Same-day registration is fraud. And then if you have same-day registration and layer in mail-in ballots and no voter ID on top of it, those are all fraudulent laws. They all should be, I've advocated that if you don't have a free, fair, and transparent election like California does not, they take 30 days to count their votes. There's no question that's not free, fair, and transparent. And the one thing Congress can do right now today is say, if you don't have a free, fair, and transparent election, which includes voter ID and no same-day registration, that we are not going to sit your members of Congress during the organizational session of Congress. They can pass that rule today, and all of California would have to sit for 48 hours, not be eligible for chairmanships, not be eligible for leadership, and you would get every single state to change these laws to make them free, fair, and transparent.
Right, and Big John, conservatives have never put a number on how much fraud. They just want it investigated, and nobody seems to want to actually do that. And when a state passes a law purposely saying it is illegal, it's not like you don't have to. It is illegal to show your ID when you go to vote. There's only one reason for that, And in fact, they threatened to take a community, a city here, who implemented their own voter ID laws to court, but then somebody got the smarter idea on the Democrat side. Let's just make it a law that it's illegal to show voter ID, and it'll supersede the local cities. So hot take number 4. Trump declares English official language. I don't need to get into the hows and whys. It's pretty black and white. Should English be the official language of the U.S. to cement national unity and streamline the government? Big John.
No. It should be the language of government, but it should not be the official language of the United States. The founding fathers saw to that. They saw that there was no reason to do it. They chose not to implement an official language. And why should we? It'll like, I would remove it from government requirement, right, because that adds cost. But, that's not the reason Trump is doing it, in my opinion. He's doing it because it's part of this MAGA ultra-nationalistic thing, that we're only going to, we should only be encouraged to speak English. That's my take on it. I don't know the specifics of it. But, yeah, that's the way I think. I think it shouldn't be the official language other than for government functions.
Right.
Big John's wrong. Big John's wrong, because we need to make it the official language. Because, listen, we have a higher percentage of of immigrants in our country now than we did during the Ellis Island days. And we're bringing in 1.1 million legal immigrants per year, 1.1 million legal immigrants, which is more than we can assimilate. And so you have to do something to try to ensure that immigrants assimilate into our society. And of course, I agree. I believe that we should decrease that number of legal immigrants, stop illegal immigration, and decrease the number of legal immigrants until we regain some balance, just like we did when we closed Ellis Island. You know, we had this huge immigration flux and we had to shut it down because there were assimilation problems, and not having English as the official language is one of the big barriers. And so Donald Trump is 100% correct to make it the official language.
To add on to what Big John was saying, the reason they didn't make it, and I remember my research, I was shocked because I had no clue. There were almost as many German speakers at the time as there were English speakers, and that was one. There was no predominant language. Ended up being English.
Jefferson thought ancient Greek should be the official language of the United States because he wanted the elites to run the country. So
gotcha.
Official languages are.
I'm not disputing that, but let's stay on topic here. That's what my research brought up. But here's the other thing. Jamie's right. English is the #1 language in the world when it comes to business language. 2, to streamline costs, as Big John said. 3, we have factions out there that are telling people do not assimilate. You know, you don't need to learn the language. To get a better job in this country, you need to learn language. Everything rates it as a positive. The ideological beliefs of, no, you don't need to do this, you don't need to do that, is hogwash. This is America. English is becoming the predominant language. You're helping yourself become a better citizen. You're empowering yourself to become a better producer, which means higher wages, etc., etc. Everything points to a positive of making it happen. And there was a time, maybe not as much anymore, when an immigrant came here, one of their proudest moments was learning English and being an American. So not having an official language at this point is not nonsense, but makes no logical sense. Okay, policy win here. I'll take number 5. Democrats vote on spending showdown. So the Democrats were saying, we're going to shut the government down. We're going to shut the government down. Going to shut the government down. They ended up aligning with the Democrats. I think there were like 8 or 9, maybe Jimmy, you know how they had actually a few extra votes over to pass the CR bill to continue funding the government. Why did the Democrats cave on the spending bill when they could have held out for a shutdown? Big John.
Well, for the same reason that Republicans look. This CR is the Biden budget. All right, that's all it is. So Democrats, when they initially opposed it, were being hypocritical because that's what they passed to begin with. Republicans, if they weren't being hypocritical, would have shut the government down. This CR is nonsense. There's only 2 members of Congress that had the right idea, Rand Paul and Thomas Massie. They voted no. That was the correct way to think about it, and for the correct reasons, by the way, because this does nothing to address the deficit. It does nothing to cut spending. Spending actually goes up with this CR. Waiting till September doesn't help because you're not going to get any extra Republican votes. So nothing changes when this thing needs to pass again in September.
Why did they acquiesce and go with Trump after saying no, they would not?
Because they don't lose. It's their budget. At the end of the day, it's their budget.
You think it was a play all along then?
No. I think they put up a token resistance for appearance's sake, like, hey, we're against Trump. But at the end of the day, they're hypocrites because it's their budget. They are actually retaining the Democrat budget that was passed under Biden. So why would they object?
Jamie.
Big John is correct.
Wow.
I was expecting the Big John is wrong.
I was almost cringing waiting for that, Jamie. I'm glad to see we can
I did that just for a little curveball, John, just for fun.
You did it for the optics, Jamie. You did it for the optics.
No, I really can't argue with Big John. I think he hit the nail on the head where, we have, Republicans, need to pass a budget. We're $2 trillion in debt per year. And so there's no question that we have to feel some pain and cut that budget out. I think Republicans blinked because the stock market's gone down so much since Donald Trump is in office. So they didn't want to have a huge budget cut right now. And I think Democrats blinked, because they did not have the votes to stand up against Donald Trump. But for all the reasons John described.
I don't think either one blinked. I think they both have a strategy. They're wanting to see played out, and I based that off the economists who when I researched on the stock market inflation, they're like, we see what Trump's doing. We're going to wait it out a little bit here before we reserve judgment. So I think both sides are playing it out. Okay, curveball, added question here. Bonus. Sorry, John. I'm sorry, not sorry, John, but it's mostly for Jamie because you are the GOP strategist. Two instances of libertarians. Justin Amash got blown out. He chose not to run because he knew he was doomed. Massie is actually an entrenched libertarian. Has won, has beaten back his challengers where Justin Amash couldn't. Thomas Massie has successfully done that over and over. He's got $1 million in the bank based off of about $300,000 raised over the last week. Jamie, Trump's talking about primarying him. Is he just talking garbage because he's angry, or is that a battle they should ignore, or should they take that up?
Yeah, I think Donald Trump should be careful going into the midterm saying that he's going to spend political capital and financial resources primarying incumbent Republicans. And I think for me, that's a bad move. Just because he is going to use political capital, he is going to use financial resources, and we know that history would show that he's likely to lose seats. Even if you want to look at this as quote Trump's second term, a president loses fewer seats in the midterm of their second term, but they still lose. And so, with the very small minority, even if it's a 12-seat move, you're handing the U.S. House back to Democrats. So I think you hold on to every Republican you can, and you put as much political capital and financial resources on target, which are Democrat held seats that you think you can flip.
Right. So, Big John. So one thing I love about Larry Sharpe is because he and I agree on literally everything. To me, he totes that conservatarian line, even though he claims to be libertarian. And he said it best. It's something I keep trying. The reason I like him is when the libertarian says, I'm like, see, that's exactly what the hell I'm saying. Donald Trump is transactional. At the end of the day, he's transactional. But so is Thomas Massie. He's also transactional based on what the issue is. And my take is, let him be. I actually back him. He stuck to his principles. You just got to deal with a guy who has values and won't sit there and shy away from them like others. But he's transactional. The next issue, you take it for what it is and you try to work with him. Your thoughts, Big John?
Thomas Massie has always voted this way. He's always been consistent. To your point, he is transactional. But the difference between the transactions, in my opinion, between Massie and Trump's transactional issues are overly affected by his tantrums, and it's rough saying this about an 80-year-old, but an immature man. So he'll get upset not over the fact that what Massie said is wrong, because what Massie said actually more closely aligns to what Trump campaigned on than what he's actually asking him to vote for. So I think it was more the case of he stood against me. He went against me. And in a fit of rage, he said, primary him. And now, of course, all the Dranos and the cat turds and all these right-wing guys on Twitter, they all go in lockstep to primary Massie, and you can see that's one thing. That's the new mainstream media is those guys, right? They just parrot whatever comes from the White House. The key to me is that Elon Musk did not come out and say, I will put my money towards primarying Massie, because that's the key, right? Musk said, I'll put $100 million towards any campaign to get to primary rhinos, that as soon as we identify rhinos, I will fund it. Nicole Shanahan said the same thing. If you go against Maat, I will fund primary challenges.
She's right. He's funding the recall of Karen Bass. Okay, I get you. I'll just push back. Trump is purely transactional. Clinton wasn't charged with. Rand Paul is his bud. Lindsey Graham, he goes back and forth. That's a little bit of that's a little bit of your TDS, because he is emotional. He does throw tantrums, but when the air clears, he's purely transactional. He doesn't go after 80 to 90% of these people. There's a difference between a Thomas Massie and a Rosie O'Donnell. And with the personal stuff. So you've got to understand that about him. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Trump supporter. That's just what the facts bear out. Or else he'd hate everybody in Congress, because Congress is very transactional. Okay. Hot take number 7. Am I on hot take number 7? We're moving at a pretty good clip. Got sidetracked there, but I thought that was a very good topic there, gentlemen. The economic boost, the EPA's historical deregulation. Okay, the EPA administrator, Lee Zeldin, has announced 31 deregulatory actions. That's about what Trump did the first couple of months, and it kind of blew open the economy. And he's dubbed this the largest in U.S. history. It's targeting Biden-era rules, and its simple goal is to open up more energy production, cut the cost for families, and revive the auto industry, and that's aligning with what Trump wants. This worked in his first term, Jamie. The question is, we're not even going to debate the issues about regs, because I'm pretty sure most of us don't know every reg. But the bottom line there, Big John, you got to check your little tool there. Shouldn't the GOP be shouting at the rooftops what they've done with the proof of how it worked the first time through his first term, Jamie?
Yeah, I think the short answer is yes, but the bigger answer is, the environment is one issue that polls well across demographics. We all want clean water. We all want clean beaches. We all want, some level of protected land that the government owns. And so whether those are state or national parks or whether they're not inaccessible to the public. So I do think that shouting it from the rooftops sometimes may agitate your opponents to a degree where they could get a political win. And so I just say you go for it, let the proof come in, and then claim the victory.
Big John, is Jamie right or wrong?
No, he's right. I mean, the free market will solve all of this, right? I disagree with him. I don't think the government should own anything other than the buildings they're working in. Let the free market figure it out. Deregulate as much as possible. But to his point, the issue of third-party damage in the environment is a very tricky one, even for people who are libertarian, who are 100% property rights based and all that. Like Milton Friedman used to say, is there a role for government if your car exudes particulate matter that I breathe when you drive by? It becomes very difficult to suss that out, especially in a large scale, right? So deregulate, but as a political matter, I don't know why you would mess with environmental protection, quite honestly.
Well, because they overregulate. When you can go into the Midwest and there's a puddle and you deem it a water.
No, I get it. But it's
John,
more on the larger scale.
Your example, all you have to do is look back at the.
I think you get rid of the regulations. You don't have to dance on their grave.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, look back at the 70s. Everything was polluted because of capitalism run amok with no safeguards. It's kind of like a kid at a house. You just can't trust them alone. All right. Hot take number 7, health crisis. Another lawmaker lost to illness. This guy is a true blue Chicago Democrat. He's not from Chicago, but he passed away and he was still tweeting today. Democrat Arizona Representative Raul Grijalva passed away after battling cancer. To cut to the chase here, he hasn't been doing anything for a year, despite being in office. We had the Kay Granger with the mental dementia for 6 months. We have Sheila Jackson. We have Donald Payne Jr. We have a whole string of these. They get sick and they don't come back. I view it, they don't want to let go of power. They know they're ill, but they run anyway. And then the cancer overcomes them, or mental illness. They're just too old. So the question is, with Grijalva, Jackson Lee, Payne, Turner, and Granger, they're all permanently out the pasture, not being able to do their jobs. Should Congress look at doing something, or should we just go, hey, tough luck, you voted him in, you're stuck with no voting until the next election cycle? Big John.
Well, of course you should do. Yeah, of course you should do something, but for the same reason that you're not going to get rid of activist judges is the only mechanism available to you is comprised of the same political body that you're trying to reform. So, you have to impeach judges. You would have to censure and impeach your own membership if you're in the House. Who's going to do that? Because the second you agree to do that, it could turn on you. And these people, the last thing they need is job insecurity in their mind. So it's never going to happen.
Your point is it should, but it's not happening. Correct. No, I agree. Jamie.
I'm going to say it should not happen just because we don't need a bunch of politicians determining who is healthy enough, because then it gets into, are they emotionally healthy enough? Are they mentally healthy enough to serve in Congress. And, then the question becomes, who determines that? And you look at a Congress like we have today, and you have 8 members. Well, Democrats could say, oh, there's 10 emotionally, incapacitated Republicans, and we need to kick them out. And somehow they're even if you have a third party body who then deems that, now you've had a switch. Now you've overturned what the voters wanted. So I think it should not happen because it's a slippery slope, and we just have to suck it up. In Florida, we have 2 open congressional districts right now. We're filling them. These other places can fill their districts, and it's not the end of the world.
Jamie, would you support something? Not that I do. I agree with you for the most part. But what about something like the mechanisms of the 25th Amendment, but just applied to members of Congress?
Well, that's just saying he can.
Sorry. My issue, the devil's in the details. Who is signing that? At least when you're talking about the 25th Amendment, you're presumably talking about a president or someone, and then cabinet members who that president appointed. And so you're saying even the people who are most loyal to this president have agreed that things have gone so far south, either health or emotional or whatever, somebody has a stroke, that they can no longer serve. And so who becomes that body in, let's say, the U.S. House? And I don't know that you keep politics out of that.
I think both of you guys are right. And to use Trump is of sound mind. You may not like him, but there is no doubt he has it together. And they wanted to use the 25th against him last cycle. They kept pushing that. And then here's Dementia Joe, who obviously was incapacitated, and they now admit that, and they refuse to look at it that way. So as much as I agree wholeheartedly with John. But then if I was a politician, it'd be like, well, Jamie actually gives me the ugly truth. Because games will be played. All right, media bias. I'll take number 8. I mean, it's sad. It's like it's they don't represent the people anymore. They represent their parties, and what they can get out of it, and that's the ultimate sin. And I'll leave it at that. I was ready to go on a rant. So, hot take number 8: in media bias, NPR's Pride event flip flop. Okay, so I'm going to read through this one a little bit because it's a lot of nuance. So NPR initially barred anchor Ari Shapiro from attending a corporate LGBTQ A through Z Pride event. And there's rules. The NPR has rules in place in terms as to not show or be seen being biased. Then the email accidentally went to everybody. And the rabble-rousers at NPR started throwing a fit. So NPR allowed him to go, but there is a rule. The guidance in our ethics handbook to avoid appearances at private industry or corporate functions, and that came from the managing editor for standards and practices. So they broke the rule because of pressure from NPR citizens. Now, should NPR have the right to block an anchor or anyone from any event tied to his job, meaning that going to that event will show a bias if it risks tainting their already shaky claim to objectivity? Part 1, Big John. Hold on, that was Little John, Big John, big head, big smile. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to be honest with you. I'll cede my time to Jamie first because I'm working really quick on these issues here. So Jamie, why don't you answer first, and then I'll jump in.
Yeah, okay. Number one, NPR should be defunded. We should not have, publicly funded propaganda radio and TV stations.
Jamie, that's part 2 of the question because I knew we were going to go there regardless. The part 1.
Well, we're definitely there. If he should have to abide by his contract. So if his contract says he cannot attend, he should not attend.
Exactly. Okay, go to part 2. My question for the part 2 is, because NPR is on shaky ground, is so biased, were they trying to play by the rules to protect themselves from Donald Trump?
I hope they can't protect themselves from Donald Trump. I hope that we defund them and we stop the political propaganda with our tax dollars. That's what NPR and PBS has been. They hide their corporate profits through, many, many ways. And, anytime they have a commercial success, it's, oh, the corporation's over here, but our tax dollars still go to fund all this. And it's, as I like to say, BS.
Big John.
Yeah, I really can't disagree with anything Jamie said. You live up to your contract that you voluntarily signed, and yeah, we should deregulate or defund rather PBS, and anything that supports the arts should be defunded.
The reason I wanted the first part answered is because it is a company's role and job. They have a right to do that to their employees. For all the bleeding hearts out there who says he has rights. In the military, I cannot go, or when I was in the military, I could not go to, say, a protest or things like that. And then the Democrats allow that to be broken, and it opened the floodgates. It just creates chaos. All right. Number 9. Okay, Jamie, can you hear me pretty well?
I can.
Okay, so John, I think that's maybe on your end then.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, so number 9, safety scandal. DEI activists caught rigging exams. So on March 12th, Shelton Snow, a DEI activist and FAA air traffic operations supervisor, was caught on voicemail allegedly offering black candidates cheat sheets for air traffic control exams, excluding any white candidates from seeing what he was giving to the black candidates. He goes, "I've taken a screenshot of valuable information. I'm 99, he said more. Then he comes back with, I'm 99.99% sure it's exactly how you need to answer. Again, excluding white candidates to minimize competition." The question here is, should Shelton Snow just be fired for rigging air traffic exams for his preferential race, blacks, or does this sabotage actually deserve a criminal investigation because it falls under fraud, conspiracy? But even worse, the big thing is a danger if you have an unqualified person manning the air traffic control station. I think that's a bit of a reach, but it is an issue that's come up. Big John.
That's a tough one because I don't know the nature of what. Look, I've been in the corporate world my entire life, right? And we all know there's certain types of exams you're forced to take for government regulation purposes. We all pass around screenshots to each other because we know it's a waste of our time and you just have to do a pro forma thing. It's a rubber stamp and you get past it. We don't do it for things that affects our job. So in the case you just cited, I don't know, were these things that he was doing potentially putting through unqualified people, or was it just? Yeah,
it's like a law. It's like a bar law. It's like your securities become a financial planner. It's those type of tests where what you know will determine if you can advance. It's not one of these human resource. Everybody has around.
So if it was a competency, if it was a test of competency and he cheated on it, it doesn't matter who he cheated for or who he excluded. He should probably be fired. It's probably in his employment agreement. So yeah, I agree. He should be gotten rid of. I don't think criminal charges are warranted, but yeah, he should be fired.
Right. So Big Jamie.
I agree. I agree with John. The only thing I would suggest is if in fact he put forward people who were unqualified because they cheated and they created an unsafe environment that led to a crash, then he's criminally liable.
Oh, sure. If that can be proven, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
But there's a lot of ifs in there.
Yeah. And also the people who accepted his help might also be properly dismissed for cheating as well. So even though they didn't take the screenshots, I would agree that by accepting those screenshots, they also are considered like in some violation of in school we called it an honor code, right? It doesn't matter if you took the crib notes or you just got somebody else's crib notes, you still got booted, right? So I think it should be the same thing here.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. The reality of it, that was the entrance exam. So they still have a ways to go to pass. So I hope that by the time they get to the level they pass, they're qualified. But yeah, he should be fired. And actually, I think at this point, with the way DEI, with the way we've had racism, tribalism, sometimes you need to make an example. And I don't care. When it was white racism, we made examples of those people. So, and as a Latino, I'm like, I always viewed racism as racism because every color was in my family. So whatever the repercussions, because there is no hate crime here. I looked that up. Is this fall under hate crime? And it doesn't, because hate crime is more violent. crime. There was no violence here, but they should investigate it. And sometimes you got to make an example of somebody so it stops others from doing that. Final question: geopolitical shit. Greenland's election upset. The righties came out and won more than ever. The lefties are no longer in charge. It's more of a split type government. This is more of a fun question, I guess. With Greenland's new government leaning pro-business and pro-U.S., is this a serious shot at a strategic alliance with America, or just more social media noise for the left to spin, or both sides to spin? We'll go to Big John, then I'll answer, then we'll let Jamie close it out.
Yeah, I mean, look, to me this is nonsense, but I don't know, because, like, I mean, what does right and left mean in Greenland? I have no idea. Like, if you told me what a right winger or a left winger is, like...
Let me jump in.
Okay.
They didn't say right winger or left winger. They said it was a more pro... It's a side that's more pro-Trump than the other side. That's all they said.
Okay, well, that still doesn't mean anything to me politically, but look, does it mean anything to me? Probably not, until I have reason to be worried about Greenland, and I have zero reason to be worried about Greenland. I don't want them to be our 51st state. I don't think we should send our troops there, or whatever Trump is thinking of doing. So to me, it's just noise.
Actually, it's not about them becoming a state. My take is it's about an alliance. And believe it or not, when I researched it out, Greenland's been wanting to secede from Denmark forever. And this is a more pro-Trump, and we'll see how far this goes, because an alliance could be set up. But I think this is more fun fodder for the internet. I think this is just Trump's bombastic way of talking and maybe creating some kind of strategic alliance to benefit the U.S., which I think is all he wants. Same thing with the Panama Canal. Mr. Jamie, you get the final take.
Yeah, President Truman was the first president that I'm aware of who actually tried to negotiate Greenland away from Denmark and was told no. And so I think that, and it was for the same reasons we're talking today, is that it's a pretty important, or it will become a pretty important piece of political dirt, if you will, that, or to protect our country and protect shipping lanes and all of the things that we're discussing today is why we want to help or have Greenland become a state. I agree with John. I don't think it becomes a state, but it's certainly in our national interest, and to have people there elected who agree with some of our national interests, I think is more helpful than not.
You made me realize something, and Big John talked about it. Trump does have a big ego, and he's looking at his legacy. But again, it's like the Central Park Five. Oh, Trump. It was all of New York. That's how they were guilty. Every president looks at their legacy and what they want to accomplish so they can be remembered fondly. Trump just goes at it quite the different way. And with that, my friends, I want to thank Big John for joining us with hot takes. And we are concluding. Our episodes seem to be getting longer, but good info. I'm trying, people. I'm going to tighten them up for y'all. But I thought it was another good episode. Jamie, a lot of great takes. Obviously, our issues with Mahmoud Khalil is more about the future and the value system and what America represents, and losing that with Tesla, the hypocrisy. Democrats see it one way as a peace-loving protest that are truthfully it's terrorism by definition. And the very first topic, the Ukraine, I do think a ceasefire will happen. Well, how it goes down, though, once it happens, we don't know. John, thanks for being on Hot Takes. For the rest of the audience, you can check out this work at grumblingsmedia.com. Bookmark it there. And you can also check us out at YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, y Pandora under the profile Grumblings Media. And I apologize before I do let you go. Big John, real quick, tell us about your two shows, and I'm going to go to Jamie to plug his stuff.
Oh, all right. And looks like my software's frittering, so it's Little John again. But check out Liberty Lens. Every Thursday it drops. Me and Mike Termat pick one issue, and we talk about it for the episode of Interest to Libertarians. And also streaming live every Thursday night at 10 p.m. free for all. We just aired our 50th episode last night with special guests Larry Sharpe and Mike Termat. So that'll be up this weekend on grumblingsmedia.com. So check it out. And thank you, William, once again for having me join your hot takes.
That was a great episode last night. I did have to direct them. Get off the TDS. Get off the TDS. Yeah, Larry Sharpe and Termont know their stuff inside and out.
And ironically enough, it wasn't me with the TDS last night.
No, it was not. And I'm only teasing. It was just it was like a very short bit. But Jamie, to y'all has a great show he's going to tell us about. But I got to toss this in there. When I see them, I think, say goodnight, Gracie. Do you remember that, Jamie?
Yeah, I do.
George Burns.
So yeah, we, my wife and I have a podcast, Reasonable Arguments. I also write a Substack under that same name, Reasonable Arguments. My wife and I, we try to break down the complex issues. You know, I'm a political expert. She is not. She is brand new to politics, basically because she fell in love with me and decided to marry me. And so we really try to break it down. We're right now in the middle of a 4-part series on legal and illegal immigration. Our second episode drops, I think, Sunday night. And we have Ed Rollins, former White House political director and Ronald Reagan's campaign manager, who is scheduled for an upcoming episode. And you know, should you be looking for a corporate speaker? I do all of that as well. And I'm an author of American Speeches That Change History. So we're doing a lot of things. And thanks for having me on, William. Big John, it's always a pleasure. You always help sharpen the knife with your great comments.
Jamie, give them your website.
Okay, the website is reasonablearguments.com. That's kind of the portal where you can find all of our stuff. We also are on all the podcast channels, so but you can find us information on all of that at reasonablearguments.com.
And with
thank
that,
you, John.
And with that, my friends, thank you for tuning in. I am William Del Pilar for Big John and Mr. Jamie Miller. And until next week, this has been Fired Up. We shall see you soon.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these 2 boxes.